Okay, so second try, and welcome Nick to the podcast. And I really appreciate you taking out the time today because I have been really looking at your LinkedIn, and you've been interviewing stuff and going out to meet people, and so really appreciate you coming out here. So people who don't know Nick, you can give a brief introduction about just 2 or 3 lines about who you are and what are you doing right now.
For sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. So my name's Nick. Previously, I've interned or worked at Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, as well as a small geospatial data startup called SafeGraph. Most recently, I have been sharing a lot of tips on how to ace data science interviews and how to break into the field. I published a best-selling book, Ace the Data Science Interview, which
I do have it.
recommend to check out. And I know you've been reading it, and we'll talk about that later. I've just been a career coach to people, putting out videos and tips on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube about data science interviews and breaking into this field.
Got it. And let's just start about your journey. You worked at Microsoft also. So what are your general tips for people applying to Microsoft? Because I also apply to that. So is there some resume tips for people who are applying to that companies, especially for FANG and big companies?
Yeah, I think a lot of the tips honestly apply to any size company, whether it's FANG or startups. I just noticed so many people have such generic information on their resumes, irrelevant information that bears no meaning to what a hiring manager in data science or software or machine learning cares about. I'll give you an example. People love to list their languages. No, not programming languages, but I mean foreign languages. And you're applying for a Microsoft internship in the US, how does it help that you know Telugu or Spanish or French or Arabic? I mean, that bears no meaning. Now, the thing is, in traditional advice would say, oh yeah, that looks good, you're multilingual. But when you put irrelevant details like, oh, I volunteered 200 hours to feed needy kids, again, that looks great. But that just distracts from why Microsoft is even trying to hire you. They're not trying to hire you to feed needy kids. So that's where it's you got to make sure that you're listing your relevant projects, your relevant work experience, your relevant courses, and anything that's irrelevant, you cut it out so that the signal can really shine and it doesn't get drowned out by noise. Too many people drown out their accomplishments with noise about their high school this, their college this, their involvement, their volunteer, all kinds of good stuff that's good to do as a human, but doesn't really mean much for the job hunt. So I think that's one of the big tips for resumes. Another source of really neutral information on the resume is the objective right at top. Oh, I'm a hardworking, dedicated, creative problem solver. Okay, these are all vague words that Rijul, you can say, I can say, any one of us can say, and who's to, question that? So it doesn't help. And I hate that people lead their resume. They start with this kind of junk, right? If you're gonna have junk, put it at the end. The first thing I'm reading is these vague sentences about how you're a motivated, passionate techie. Doesn't do shit for me, you know what I mean? Everyone applying to Microsoft and Google is that way. So I think that's my big tip for resumes.
Got it. And when did you recognize that, hey, this is the right time for me to leave Microsoft and do separate thing, or go into a different field, a different company? So was there a calling factor there?
Sorry, can you ask the question again? I didn't quite understand.
When you left Microsoft for another company,
Internships, yeah. So these are internships. It was just a summer. But what I really enjoyed my time at Microsoft, but I wanted to see other things. So when I got to intern at Google's Nest Labs, that's their IoT unit that makes smart thermostats, smart webcams, and a few other smart home products. It was my way of seeing IoT, because back in 2016, Internet of Things was really hot, sensors was hot, and Google's Nest Labs was a smaller company. So that kind of was what motivated me to try out something. And then again, Facebook was social media, and I was really interested in growth engineering at that moment. Growth engineering is about using data to help build better products that are more sticky. So it's kind of this mix of psychology, marketing, software engineering, and data. So it was this really interdisciplinary field. That's kind of what brought me to Facebook. And then again, once I'd worked at a big company like Facebook as a new grad, I was like, let me change things up and work at a small company called SafeGraph, which had only 18 people at it when I joined. you know? So that was very different size than Google's Nest Labs, which had 1,000 people, and Microsoft, which was at, 100,000 people. So
that's great. And like you have been in the data science field since a long time, so people really get confused. Like I also get confused when I look for jobs on LinkedIn. Like, what actually is data science according to you? What do you think it is?
I'm not even gonna try to answer that. I'm not sure if I have any like pithy, smart answer that's better than what Wikipedia can give you.
Yeah.
I also think that the reason I'm not trying to define it is because data science definitely means different things to different people. And what one company calls data science, another would call a data analyst job, one would call machine learning, one would call data engineering. At a small company, being a data scientist actually does mean doing some data engineering and other types of work. At a big company, maybe there is a very specific meaning. That's why I kind of just don't even like fall too much into like what do we label it as and like how do we separate it out. I just go job posting by job posting and just try to see, do my skills match up with what they're looking for? Great. And then after that, I don't care what they're calling it, right? Or not only do my skills match up, do I want to do this kind of work? Because that's another thing. You might see a bait and switch. Oh, let's call this job data science, but then make the whole thing about making dashboards.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really data science. Forget what it's called. They might still call it that just to get people in the door, but that might be called BI, or that might be just called like a visualization, or that might be just be called like analytics, right? That's not real data science if all day you're just only in Tableau. So yeah, that's why I like just don't even worry about it and I try to go job posting to job posting and see if I'm a good fit.
Got it. And like, would you have some tips for like getting a data science internship? Because the thing you said right now, going out on LinkedIn and searching for jobs and then seeing if my skills match or not and then applying. So what do you have, like, is there a specific tip for getting a data science internship? Like some skills or projects?
I have a few tips that are in this book.
Yeah.
That's basically what the whole first 4 chapters are about the book, which is about how do you build resumes to stand out?
So how do you build resumes?
Portfolio projects. How do you build portfolio projects to stand out, right? Like that's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
My biggest advice is you want to really stand out and make an impact on the job hunt. Besides just going to your university, doing your classes, it's build really, really good projects. And I detail a little bit more about that in chapter 2 of Ace the Data Science Interview, but let me give you some tips right now. I think the biggest thing is you got to make your project complete, right? That's the first thing. Like, I don't want to see a half-assed project. I don't want to see a project that's local. I want it published on GitHub. Even better, I want it deployed, right? If you're doing machine learning work, I want a deployed model that I can go test out, that I can poke around, that I can see the code for. So that's one big way to set yourself apart from others when it comes to building a project to be noticed on the job hunt. The other thing is to have really good visuals. Because let's face it, we're humans, right? Visuals we understand way better than, if I'm a recruiter, I'm looking at your work. I only have 10 seconds. I'm not going to read line 476 of your GitHub repo and be like, whoa, that's some really good data cleaning. No, I want to see that cool infographic, that cool GIF. I want to see you make a self-driving car. I want to see that public Tableau dashboard that you can make. I want to see a cool like transfer learning project you made where I can upload a picture of me and then you make my photo look like it was painted by Michelangelo, some kind of transfer learning project, but I need to actually be able to upload an image and then you do the transform on it and you spit it out, right? Like that makes so much more of an impact than some random GitHub code that's really messy that I can't even see.
Got it.